The story today takes place in Shuilin Miao, Yunnan Province, China. The girl's name is Tao Jing, and she is the youngest child in her family. Sadly, Tao Jing has not felt the warmth of a family since she was a child. When she was young, Tao Jing accidentally witnessed her father having an affair with a neighbor. Because she was so scared, Tao Jing burst into tears. Her crying attracted the attention of the surrounding neighbors, who immediately ran over to see what had happened. When her mother found out, she loudly confronted her father. After his persuasion and expression of remorse, she chose to endure it. The news of her father's affair quickly spread, leading to Tao Jing's classmates teasing her. She frequently became the target of her peers' jokes, and her friends distanced themselves. Tao Jing began to withdraw and spoke less. In 1979, when Tao Jing's father had another affair, her mother could no longer bear it and decided to divorce. Tao Jing's father gained custody of her brother, and Tao Jing stayed with her mother. These changes in her mental state became increasingly significant. Tao Jing transformed from a lively and cheerful girl into a more silent and rebellious one. At the age of 15, Tao Jing entered high school, and life was extremely difficult for her and her mother at that time, as their main income came from her mother's modest salary. Furthermore, her mother sustained a serious back injury while at work, which required a period of rest. Disheartened by their circumstances, Tao Jing began dating a handsome, high-performing classmate. Their romance led them to often skip school for dates, causing both of their grades to decline. When their teacher discovered this, she informed Tao Jing's mother, which led to an argument between them. Tao Jing adamantly refused to give up the relationship, straining her relationship with her mother. However, it wasn't long before things came to an end. Her boyfriend was accepted into a university in Guangdong. Meanwhile, Tao Jing failed her college entrance exam, and they gradually grew apart. After some time, they broke up, and he sent Tao Jing a letter blaming her for hindering his studies, which he claimed prevented him from getting into a better school. This was a severe blow to Tao Jing. She failed to get into university, lost her boyfriend, and continuously faced criticism from her mother. Deciding to quit school, Tao Jing resolved to leave and seek employment. From there, life's challenges began to unfold for this young girl. After arriving in Shuilin Miao, she quickly landed a job as a shampoo girl in a hair salon. During the 80s and 90s in China, some hair salons were actually fronts for illegal activities. At first glance, they might appear to be ordinary shops, but inside, they were actually venues for illegal prostitution. Perhaps due to her attractive appearance, business at the salon flourished rapidly once Tao Jing started working. Many male customers requested her services, including several successful businessmen who invited her out, and some even wanted to sleep with her. She knew that her colleagues were making a lot of money by accompanying clients to hotels, sometimes earning more in one visit than Tao Jing's monthly salary. However, she firmly refused. She did not agree with earning money by selling her body. Despite her refusal, these men continued to visit her. Everything changed one day when a young and stylish customer entered the salon. His name was Yang Bo, a handsome and dashing man in his 20s. He introduced himself to Tao Jing as an overseas Chinese businessman from Myanmar, often passing through the city after finishing his work and before returning home. Despite his serious demeanor, he was considerate and respectful towards Tao Jing, never crossing any boundaries with her. One day, when Yang Bo came to the salon and saw Tao Jing at work, he noticed another customer intentionally touching her. Seeing this, Yang Bo stepped in, grabbed the man by the collar, dragged him to the door, and pushed him out. The man did not dare to say anything and left in embarrassment. From that moment, Tao Jing began to develop feelings for Yang Bo. A few days later, she invited him to dinner to express her gratitude. During the meal, Yang Bo told her that he had served in the military, revealed that he was single, and expressed his feelings for Tao Jing. Since then, Yang Bo visited Tao Jing every day, always bringing a bouquet of flowers and a gift basket, which made her colleagues envious. Within a month of dating, they moved in together. Yang Bo took great care of Tao Jing, often taking her out and buying her clothes and jewelry. Eventually, Tao Jing stopped working at the salon because Yang Bo provided her with a generous monthly allowance, which was more than she could make in several months combined. This made Tao Jing feel like the happiest woman alive, and she dreamed of marrying Yang Bo one day. Little did she know that all the heartache and deception were still ahead, and everything was just beginning. After a few months of living in bliss, Tao Jing began to notice some odd behaviors in Yang Bo. From his habit of disappearing for days without any contact and not providing her with a way to reach him, to their constant need to move locations, sometimes staying in one place for just a few days. He explained that the nature of his business required him to frequently return to Myanmar, yet he rarely brought any luggage with him, a significant contradiction. Her curiosity grew over time, and one day Tao Jing confronted Yang Bo, asking if he was involved with another woman and expressing her desire to know more about his business. Realizing he could no longer hide the truth, he confessed to Tao Jing that he was involved in a drug trafficking ring, dealing heroin with a production base in Myanmar. From the 1950s to the late 2000s, Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand became globally notorious for their drug production and trafficking, particularly in the Golden Triangle area, which was considered the largest drug-producing region in Asia at the time. The rugged terrain, dense forests, and complex river systems made it extremely difficult to track and dismantle drug trafficking networks. Drug traffickers employed highly sophisticated smuggling tactics. They often used prostitutes to conceal drugs within their bodies. Infamous drug lords adopted even more brutal transportation methods, such as forcing their slaves to swallow drugs and then vomit them upon arrival, or even more gruesomely, surgically inserting drugs into their bodies and later removing them upon delivery. These actions were aimed at exploiting the vulnerable and easily manipulated for the benefit of drug production and trafficking organizations. A notable figure from that era was the infamous drug lord Kun Sa, who was dubbed the Drug King due to his command of a private army of 800 men. At the height of his power, Kun Sa single-handedly dominated the entire Southeast Asian drug market and aspired to create a state of his own. However, in 1969, Kun Sa was arrested by the Myanmar government. Returning to the story of Yang Bo and Tao Jing, after discovering that her boyfriend was a drug trafficker, Tao Jing was truly shocked and unable to accept it. She cried a lot and eventually decided to end their relationship. At that time, Tao Jing also discovered she was pregnant but chose not to tell Yang Bo. Therefore, she went alone to the hospital to have an abortion. Feeling both physically and mentally devastated, Tao Jing returned to her mother's home. She was torn by the pain of separation and uncertainty about her future. Thus, she decided to restart her life and dedicate the remainder to caring for her elderly mother. However, a young woman like Tao Jing could not escape Yang Bo's manipulation. A few days later, Yang Bo found Tao Jing and told her that he knew about her pregnancy and apologized for it. He also said that he couldn't live without her and promised that he would only continue his illicit activities for a few more years. Once he had earned enough money, he planned to move somewhere else with Tao Jing and live a happy life together. Moved by his promise and still harboring feelings for Yang Bo, Tao Jing decided to forgive him and gave him another chance. They returned to the city together. Once he had regained Tao Jing's trust, Yang Bo began to suggest that she help him make money by socializing with influential figures in the criminal underworld to facilitate his business relationships. Wanting to quickly realize her dream of a happy life with the man she loved, Tao Jing agreed. At that time, she was used by Yang Bo as a sexual tool, often spending nights entertaining drug trafficking bosses. This reckless lifestyle led to several unwanted pregnancies, each resulting in painful abortions, which also disrupted Yang Bo's operations. Despite this, Tao Jing continued to follow his instructions, hoping for the happy family life Yang Bo had promised. Later, Yang Bo suggested Tao Jing use a contraceptive coil to prevent further unwanted pregnancies, which could impede their plans. Tao Jing initially disagreed, but Yang Bo, being a persuasive talker, convinced her by saying he was not ready to be a father, and she agreed to continue following his directions. Thanks to Tao Jing, Yang Bo's business connections quickly flourished. Not stopping there, Yang Bo continued to exploit Tao Jing's feelings, using them as an excuse to involve her in drug trafficking. Knowing her mother was her weak point, he promised Tao Jing about $370 for each successful delivery. If anything happened to her, he promised to provide her mother with an annual allowance of about $2,000, a significant sum at that time. Yang Bo also mentioned that trafficking drugs in Myanmar was not a significant issue, as he had done it successfully many times. The real danger was smuggling drugs across the China-Myanmar border and then transporting them into Kunming, known for strict drug enforcement. Initially, Tao Jing disagreed due to the danger, and she was scared since it was her first time. However, with his experience as a seasoned drug trafficker, Yang Bo successfully convinced her with a promise. If caught, he would not disclose any information about Tao Jing and asked her to do the same. A few days later, Yang Bo and Tao Jing traveled to Myanmar. Upon arriving at a designated meeting point near the Myanmar border, a woman handed Tao Jing a package. She took out a small part, repackaged it, and instructed Tao Jing to hide it carefully. The woman advised Tao Jing to stay calm when passing through the checkpoint, then gave her a bus ticket to Kunming and a wallet, instructing her to take out the item after passing the checkpoint and put it into the bag. If everything went smoothly, Tao Jing was to go to a small alley near the Kunming Children's Hospital, then find a man wearing a white baseball cap carrying a black leather bag. She was to hand him the item and return to the apartment. Meanwhile, Yang Bo would head back to China and meet her there in a few days. After receiving the instructions from the stranger, Tao Jing took the package and crossed the border checkpoint alone. The border police, seeing a young girl with little luggage, did not stop her and let her through. Following the plan, Tao Jing took a bus to Kunming and stayed in a small hostel. The next day, October 8, 1991, Tao Jing arrived early at the delivery location. She anxiously looked around, and a few minutes later, a man approached, matching the description given by the woman. Tao Jing took out the item from the black bag to hand it to the man, as discussed in the plan. However, this man turned out to be an undercover Chinese police officer. Upon confirming that the package contained drugs, the man immediately grabbed Tao Jing's arm, handcuffed her, and dragged her to a crossroad in the alley before pushing her into a truck. Tao Jing was terrified, having never imagined her worst fears would become reality so quickly. She was then taken to the Kunming Drug Control Department. In the interrogation room, Tao Jing, frightened, answered the police's questions, but steadfastly refused to reveal any information about Yang Bo, despite the police's questioning and attempts to persuade her. On October 26, 1991, at a public sentencing hearing at the Intermediate People's Court of Yunnan, Tao Jing was sentenced to death for trafficking and transporting 484.2 grams of drugs and was permanently stripped of her political rights. At that time, the period from the death sentence to its execution was very short. One day later, during her second appeal, the death sentence for Tao Jing was upheld, and the execution date was set for October 28, 1991. During the time from the trial to the execution, police officers continuously encouraged Tao Jing that her sentence might be reduced if she cooperated with the police in their investigation, acknowledging that Tao Jing had been deceived and wishing to prevent her wrongful death. A police officer even contacted Tao Jing's mother to try to persuade her, but it seemed nothing would change. Knowing they would not extract any information from Tao Jing on the day before her execution, the same officer asked if there was anything she wished to do. Tao Jing had two requests. First, to see her mother one last time, and second, to have the contraceptive coil, which had been causing her discomfort and physical pain due to irregular operation and poor hygiene conditions, removed. Both requests were granted, and a minor surgery was conducted in the Kunming prison. The kind-hearted officer even brought her a pair of shoes and a meal prepared by her mother, capturing the moment Tao Jing ate her last meal. On October 28th, Tao Jing was led into the public execution chamber, bound with ropes and a nameplate around her neck. After a brief statement, she was taken to the execution site. Before being placed in the vehicle, Tao Jing was allowed to meet her mother, father, and brother one last time. When her brother begged her to reveal everything, Tao Jing replied, "If you really care about me, help take care of our mother after I'm gone." She also told her aging mother, "Don't cry, Mom, or I won't be able to leave peacefully." But Tao Jing burst into tears in her final moments upon seeing her mother weep. The execution was completed, and police found a piece of paper in Tao Jing's hand with the words, "I love Mom very much." These were the final words of Tao Jing, who died at the age of 20. After Tao Jing's death, Chinese police continued to investigate Yang Bo's drug trafficking network. They returned to the hair salon where Tao Jing once worked, but found no clues. Even the man present at the fateful meeting between Yang Bo and Tao Jing had been arranged by Yang Bo. Many believe that Tao Jing was blinded by love and view her as a foolish criminal who sacrificed her life for someone undeserving. However, if one considers her challenging family situation and unhealthy social environment, it is understandable that these factors negatively impacted her psychological development. Growing up in an environment lacking care and education, along with continuous emotional damage from family to relationships, made her desperate for love when she met Yang Bo. Additionally, her youth and incomplete psychological development led to impulsive decisions and reckless actions. Tao Jing's behavior can be seen as a result of a combination of psychological, social, and personal factors. Many feel sympathy for the story of Tao Jing. Some also criticize the unfairness of the punishment. Yang Bo was never arrested by the Chinese police, and they never discovered his real identity. Yang Bo, now possibly over 50, may still be somewhere in the world, and it is uncertain if he remembers Tao Jing, who lost her life because of him. Several years after Tao Jing's execution, her mother, deeply saddened, also passed away due to illness. She never received the money Yang Bo had promised, not even a single dollar.